Welcome back to the channel. This is Punched, and today we're going to talk about an alternate version of the terrain effects chart. This is for the Armored Knights Case Blue Don Bend game. And this is by Grognard Simulations. On the left-hand side, we have the actual published chart that came from the company. It ships with the Don Bend game, and very useful, a wealth of information here based on different terrain types and some situations and so on. On the right-hand side, we have this alternate version. It's a, how shall I say, house rule, a homebrew, something like that. I'll have a link to the file in the description below. So I'm going to go back and forth a little bit. I'm going to talk about why have an alternate table, what the alternate tables got compared to the original, and also we're going to talk about the original table and where it makes sense to use it. Okay. We'll also talk a little bit about my perceptions on the design philosophy on Grognard Simulations that caused them to produce this particular terrain effects chart, and I think it's a valid philosophy, but I think we've got some application here for this alternate. Okay, we're going to continue on. All right. So, why do an alternate chart? Well, I find this chart to be a little bit easier to use. It simplifies things greatly. If you look at the two charts back and forth, you'll notice that there's a lot less visual clutter here. At the end of a long day or after a long gaming session, I find that my brain tends to get fried, and this chart on the right, this alternate, I think is going to be much more kinder to my poor old brain after 10 o'clock at night, for example, or if I've been going hard for several hours. It's going to be a bit easier to use. So what exactly are the changes here? Well, I'm not going to point out every single last change, but I took a copy of the terrain effects chart and started playing around with it in a paint program, effectively. So all of the times ones have been removed. Why? Well, it's just visual clutter on the page, right? This X1 stuff over here, and I don't actually have to do any math on it, right? We have blanks already, so we have here and here and here and so forth. We have plenty of precedent for having blank spots on the page, and I figured I would just continue that on. And I don't have to do any math on a times one. Okay. I took off a -0 combat DRM down here for town and city. This one. Why? Well, -0 means nothing, you know. I put the clarification in. I know where they're coming from. -0 town, -2 city. Well, I just put -2 and then put city in parentheses. Let's see. There are some other things. You'll notice that oftentimes on the original, the main terrain effects chart, there's a slash, right? There's two different values split off with a slash. And that you'll see that here on infantry combat strength. Basically, every one of these columns can have a slash in it. The slash typically is going to be for the slash is typically going to be for weather effects. It's going to be mud, snow, or river flooding. Okay. In some cases, like item 8 in the original, where the heck did we have that? I do not recall. Well, in any event, 6s, if assaulting across, it's got to be around, there it is, right there, 8, okay? Major river. So the second number here only applies if you were assaulting across the Volga River or the Dnieper River, neither of which are in play in Don Bend. So what I've done here is the weather in Don Bend is hot and relatively dry. There's no mud It's possible to get mud, but so far I haven't played with the weather module. Not a whole lot of need to do so. The historical record doesn't show any mud during the Don Bend timeframe, which is a late July timeframe in a relatively small area, despite the fact that it's a 6-map game. So I took the weather effects out, like item 6. Yeah. I took the weather effects out, which got me 4 and 5 and 7, and also 8, because the 2 major rivers referred to here are not in Don Bend. I took out 14, 15, 14 and 15, which have to do with frozen rivers. It's not freezing in July. And yeah, that's pretty much it here. I left everything else in place because they are very relevant indeed. So, okay, what else? So basically simplified it down. So this is only useful for Don Bend, right? If you get into other games, if you get into the Caucasus, you're going to have mountains. In fact, I left mountains in here, even though there are, to the best of my knowledge, no mountain hexes in the game. Speaking of mountain and swamp for that matter, you notice that I've got this road only, right? Instead of not applicable, which is actually factually incorrect, I believe. I put in road only, which means that track and horse-drawn and truck units can in fact go through a mountain hex and can in fact go through a swamp hex, but only along roads, okay? And so I put the clarification here. And that is evidenced by item 6, which is armor may attack along trail or road only. And I think it's also called out in the rule book. I think it is, not certain. But you can have tanks in the mountains. You can have tanks in the swamps on a road. And so that's what we're doing here. Road only. Okay, so that's what's happening here. So we've got a simplification. There are no slashes here, right? Because they're all due to weather or river flooding, which is also part of weather and so on. So greatly simplified, a lot less visual clutter on the page, and hopefully you will find this to be of some use. All right, so we've got the alternate here, we've got the original. Begs the question, why does the original have this complexity in it? Why does it have frozen stuff when Don Bend is only in July? Why does it have the Volga and the Dnieper when we're only dealing with the Don, right? Which this rule does not apply to. Why are we dealing with snow and heavy mud, light mud, heavy snow, and so on, when that's not really a factor according to the historical records in this late July timeframe? Well, Grognard Simulations, if you're familiar with their products, they tend to put out master sets of rules, okay? What does that mean? In other words, for a game system in which they're going to have multiple titles, they may put different rules, they may put rules that are applicable to particular parts of the game or particular time frames. They'll put them into the same rule book. That's what we've got here. So we have one single terrain effects chart that is going to be good for fighting in the Caucasus. It's going to be good for fighting back east where we have the Dnieper River early in the campaign. It's going to be good later on when we're fighting in vicinity to the Volga. Okay? It's going to be good later in the year when we get snow, right? We've got this thing called a Rasputitsa, I believe, which is just a kind of a rainy, muddy sort of season that we got in late June. We had some effects like that in late June. So you'll see those in other games in the series, and you'll be able to do them all here, right, at the expense of the complexity. I just simply thought one day, well, you know, hey, for Don Bend, that's what we've got now. It's the only thing that we've got now. And you know what? For now, I kind of like this idea, having this simplification here. And let's just go with that. So yeah, I was just slowing down here to notice here's another slash, ×1 times 0.5. And the 0.5 is going to be during river flooding. That's item 7. During river flooding, use the second number. Well, we don't have river flooding as far as I know. And so that's why we took off the 0.5. All that's left is a ×1, which comes off. No problems. All right. So that's it. Yeah, that's about all I have to say about that. Like I said, the link to this file, it's a simple JPEG file, but it should print. You should be able to make it print on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. You know, comes in handy, and we'll see how this goes. Let me know what you think. If you like the video, hit a like. I'd love to see your comments below as to the applicability. Was this even worth doing? I know that here in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to crank up here we go. I'm going to crank up the tank cemetery scenario again, and I'm going to use this chart and see how well it works. It should work out fairly well, I think. I hope so, anyway. And I might try and go back and forth, one turn on one table, one turn on the other table, so that I have some sort of apples to apples, I don't know, anecdotal impressions to supply. But I can tell you, this one over here on the right, for Don Bend, right? For Don Bend in this time frame, I think is going to be good. The funny thing, we're going to be right back on the Don Bend maps, right, during Operation Uranus, which is the main Soviet counterattack coming in from the north in relative to this sector. So we're on the west side of the Don, and they come back and they take Kalach, right? They come from past the coffee cup in that direction, right? And they come down to the south, and they also come from the lake area southeast of Stalingrad. But that's going to happen, and it's going to be muddy, it's going to be wintry, there's going to be river flooding, there's going to be frozen, likelihood of frozen major and minor rivers. All this stuff over here is going to be in effect, right? So this is not a universal replacement for this terrain effects chart. It is just a simple replacement now for Don Bend now, right? And by now I mean late July 1942. So again, hit the likes. Love to see your comments below. Let me know what you think, and we'll see you down the road.